reckon what makes a good project manager is quite a subtle question, because in the book, for a start, I try and explain there are 4 big categories. And I only mention it once, but there are 40 categories in total. I don't mention them because it's for the sort of advanced people who want to get projects completely right. So the 4 big categories are about whether you know what you're doing and how you're doing it. Then an easy one to understand is whether or not the project is very visible as it moves along, like having your house redecorated, you can go and check. Or whether there's something like a culture change where you turn up every morning and you say, has the culture changed? And no one knows, and you have to send out another survey. So that's visibility. So even with those 4 project types, you can have a project which is, you know what you're doing, you know how you're doing it, and you can see progress. So just stop and think about, if you know what you're doing, know how you're doing it, and you can see progress. Level of stress, 0. How about a project you don't know exactly what you're doing, don't know how you're doing it, so foggy, and you can't see progress. Level of stress? So they're different. And then there's another set of dimensions, which is about the power dynamics of who's driving the project and who has to deliver it. So for example, if you go out and pay your gardener to put in some new roses, you're driving it, they're delivering it, you give them money, they give you roses. It's very straightforward. If on the other hand, you and your family are deciding where you should go on holiday and what meal you should make, then it gets quite noisy in the kitchen because everyone's doing their own thing. Don't do that, I'll do this, etc. Because the driving and the delivering is exactly the same group. No money's changing hands, so it's quite complex. If it's an organization, then the politics goes through the roof. Just that dimension is quite important. But of course, there are things like partnerships and agencies and things like, so that's how you end up with 40. But I never mentioned the 40. I think it's one sentence. So when you ask me about a project manager, there's 2 levels to being a project manager. If you take a human being and you slice them across the middle, apparently they're like an onion. Right in the middle is the ego id, all the sort of subconscious bits, okay? Outside that are all your values. Outside that are your basic skills and who you are. Then outside that is how you start to express yourself in terms of who you are, what you do when you are relaxed as you are. And then outside that is your public behavior. So think about all those layers. No one ever experiences your ego and id. They experience your behavior. They experience your public behavior at work and maybe your normal behavior at home, but they never experience your ego in. Does that make sense? So if you're a project manager and you change your behavior, that's what makes the difference. It's not your personality. Does that make sense? So I, for example, I do not like paint by numbers. That's in me. I'm into that. But I can do it because I know the behaviors. I know I have to be organized. I know I have to show a plan. I know how to behave to make everyone around me follow a paint by numbers. But I don't change at all. So the ideal project manager is interesting, but it's more about how they behave as opposed to who they are. Does that make sense? In the book called Square Peg, where I try and get people to understand their own preferences. So into the ego-ish, id-ish, value-ish bit. Because one of the most common things I've seen is if you meet somebody and they've been very successful as a project manager, but they've been good at, let's say, paint by numbers, visible projects, that would be like construction, that sort of thing, where you can see, and maybe turnkey projects where there's a contract and money exchanging. So that's where they built up, that's where their confidence is. And then you put them into a corporate transformation, foggy thing. What they do is they try and change what they've been asked to do into what their favorite thing is. So they deal with all the bits they can understand and ignore all the bits they can't. Or vice versa. If you get somebody who's a bit, I like foggy stuff and being creative and being engaged with the people, and you give them so Square Peg is to help people realize how not to sabotage their own projects to match what they like doing.